Hello, beautiful. You are listening to No Breaks. My name is Chulu. I am the founder of Africana Woman. I had the pleasure of speaking at Women in the Boardroom, the Copper Belt edition. And my topic was Your Health is Your Wealth. I was speaking about this from the angle of trauma. Now, a lot of questions were asked and so many were not answered. That's why I have decided that I am going to continue the conversation here on the podcast. So I will be answering some of the questions that were asked. And if you have any question that you want to ask, please do reach out to us at Africana Woman. You will find us on Twitter. You will find us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Send us a message in the DM and we will keep it anonymous. We will try our uttermost to answer as many questions as possible. So the first question that I have chosen to address was a question that was asked by a man. I know it was an event for women, but we did have a few good men. The question is, how is rape a big deal for women when boys also get raped, but don't make it a big deal? Now, whenever I have a session, I always lay a foundation of the conditions of our conversation. I wasn't able to do that this time. However, what I do say is, when we have conversations in safe spaces, people are going to say things that we don't always agree with, and that's absolutely fine. All I ask is that we speak to each other with respect. Now, when this question was asked in such a big space, there was a lot of emotions that rose up. And I know this because people told me, they reached out to me, and they told me about the emotions that they had when the question was asked. Now, I was particularly glad that a question like this could be asked because then it shows us the state of our society. It shows us the work that we need to do. When the question was asked, I did state that I did not agree with the way the question was phrased. And I'm going to start here. Have you ever thought about how a rapist is created? Now, let's be very clear. Rape is not about sexual pleasure. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. Rape is about power. It is about exerting control over your environment or over somebody else, which is really born out of a cycle of trauma. For a man who experienced the trauma of being raped as a child, in that moment, they had no power. So when they grow up and they're not able to tell anyone about what happened, they're not able to do any sort of healing, what do they do in turn? They want to get their power back. They then rape a woman in particular who is weaker than them, just so that they can make sense of what happened to them in the past and gain back their power. Now, let's be real. We live in a society that is extremely homophobic. For a man to grapple with the fact that they were an unwilling participant of a homosexual act is almost crippling. So, what are the coping mechanisms for that young boy who grows into a man? One, he either also becomes a rapist. Two, they become depressed, withdraw within, and succumb to suicide. Listen, men live much shorter lives than women. And the mortality rate of men by suicide is much higher than women. Now we have to ask ourselves, why? Why are our men dying so young? Why are our men dying by suicide? Because we don't have an environment that allows them to say that this thing happened to me. I was raped. And how do I heal from this? Because there isn't that environment, men would rather take a secret like that to the grave with them. So, I very strongly do not agree with the statement that says that women make a big deal out of rape versus men who just get over it. They don't. They don't get over it. In fact, the cycle of trauma continues to be seen and felt in our society. Let's shift the conversation to what happens for a woman. When a woman is raped, the long-term consequences are much more visible, should I say. So there is the risk of being pregnant and having to raise a child, because we live in a Christian society, so abortion is not an option. So she has to raise a child that is born out of rape and have that constant reminder of how this child was brought onto this earth. There's the possibility that a woman can get pregnant. There's also the possibility that a disease like HIV or any other sexually transmitted disease is passed on to the woman. And this is something that she has to deal with for the rest of her life. And again, a constant reminder. We live in a society that is so violent against the female body, whether in the home, in transit, or at work. The violence that women have to deal with, the harassment, the fear for our safety is ever present. And the reason why our women are attacked is because men haven't healed from their own trauma. So instead, they attack the weaker sex. They try to exert power over the weaker sex. When this question was asked, I honestly thought about how it is akin to a white man asking a black man, why does he have a problem with racism? Is racism even a bad thing? For a question like this to be asked is really a reflection of the privilege that men have in comparison to what women have to go through. Men are privileged. You do not even have to think half as much as we do about our safety. Where a man may not ever experience a sexual trauma, a woman will experience it multiple times in different forms, in different spaces over her whole lifetime. So, let's just be clear. Whether you are a man or whether you are a woman, it is not easy to just move on. It is not easy to just move on. So no, rape is not a big deal for just women. It is a big deal for everyone, for society. And we really have to ask ourselves, Why is it that men are so angry? That men are so violent towards women in the first place? Because they have not dealt with a trauma. They do not have healthy coping mechanisms, and they do not have safe spaces for healing. So what are we going to do about it as a society, as a whole? So I hope this answers your question. If it doesn't answer your question, I am a little concerned. However, I would love to hear from everybody about what you think on this particular topic. Please do reach out, send us your feedback, and let's continue the conversation. I will see you tomorrow.